Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Transitions Collective. I'm your host, Mary Clavier. Today I'm speaking with Maggie Patterson from Scoop Studios and Small Business Boss. Maggie runs an agency for content marketing. She also has the Small Business Boss podcast, which gives you fluff-free lessons for growing and building your service-based business. So today we're talking all about how to get clients, what that looks like for people, what roadblocks they might hit. And also we get into content marketing and social media and how that works with connecting to your business and your clients. So tune in and I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, Maggie. Welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here, Mary. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm so excited. We're going to talk all about getting clients and what that process is like. Super, super important. First, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family?
So I'm the mom of an almost 15-year-old. Mary and I were literally just talking about this. And I actually started my business. I never went back to work after mat leave. So, I went through a big life transition, but I actually knew when I went on mat leave, I was like, I'm from Canada. We go for a year. I was like, that's the perfect time to leave. I actually packed up my office and left. And so I have a son. I'm happily married, have been for about 1 million years. I'm going to keep him. It's worked out well. And I'm also a cat lady. I'm a crazy cat lady with 2 crazy cats. So, and we live in a small 500 person town, which I'm very happy to report we will be escaping shortly to go to the city. Yay.
Yeah.
And so
vacation.
What?
Like for good or for vacation?
Oh, we're going to London on vacation, but we're actually moving into Ottawa because we live outside the city right now. And, I listed my house for sale 4 days before we go for vacation because we do things a little extreme around here. So life advice, don't be like me. Maybe not so extreme. And I run 2 businesses. I own a content marketing agency called Scoop Studios. And then I also run Small Business Boss, which is like I don't want to use the word passion project, but my absolute thing I love doing, because one of the things I noticed in running my agency is a lot of people don't know the basics of business, right? You start your business because you're like, I'm an accountant or I'm a lawyer, and you have these skills as a professional, but you don't necessarily have the skills to be like, how do I price myself? How do I get clients? Like all these things that a lot of people like to make way more complicated than. So Small Business Boss is really about demystifying that and really providing that information to people and in a really accessible, tangible way. So you can take things away and be like, hey, I know this is a great starting point. I'm going to take it and make it my own.
Yes, I love that. I love your fluff-free lessons.
No one needs fluff.
They're very helpful. Excellent. Okay. And I love that you founded that from the other work you were already doing. I feel like that's a little bit like me with the Transitions Collective, because I started Brief Transitions selling the postpartum underwear. And then from that decided like, hey, I love talking to other people about this and interviewing people and hearing their stories like yours, and learning from experts and all of those good things. So thank you so much. Okay. So jumping right in then to how to get clients. What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people make when they go to approach and say, hey, I want to generate more business? What mistakes do you see them make?
So I think there's a couple core mistakes. And I think a lot of times the mistakes depend on where you are professionally. So for a lot of people, if they're really established professionals, one of the things I see happens a lot is they expect that everything they've done in their past business world is going to be completely relevant in their new business, right? Like you're like, well, I have 20 years as a marketing professional at big company XYZ, therefore this is no problem. And what we fail to realize sometimes when we're making that move or that transition is it is very different. And as much as our experience is the appointment, we need to kind of humble ourselves and be like, all right, I am back to basics. Because when you're starting that business and trying to find clients for the first time, it is a fresh new experience. So I think that's number one. I think one of the other things we don't necessarily take into account is the extent of our professional network, because in those first few years of business, most of your business is going to come from relationships you already have or a referral from someone you already have. And, like Mary and I got connected through Jamie, right? Like it's all about that interconnected network. And I think a lot of times we we're like, oh, I'm just going to go to this event and find all these new clients, when really we've got this amazing network of people who already know, like, and trust us and want us to succeed. So like my very first client, like way back, it came as a recommendation from a college professor. And it's because I let everyone possible on the planet know, hey, here's what I'm doing now. Here's the update. Here's how you can help me. And those people want you to succeed. Those people are cheering you on. So don't hide away and like pretend you're like, oh, I'm just going to be over here. I don't want anyone to know what I'm doing. So we're a little bit shy or embarrassed. Work your personal network, work your professional network, and really stretch yourself to do that, because those relationships will be the bedrock of your business. So I think those are really the two biggest mistakes. And then the last mistake I'm just going to add is, if you're in the online space at all, if you're operating at all in the online business world, or you've kind of like been seduced by the ads in your Facebook feed, I just want you to know it doesn't have to be so hard to find clients. You don't have to create a big automated funnel. You don't have to do all these internet things and learn all these things. Ultimately, what you can be doing is very practical, easy marketing and sales strategies that don't require any special skills or really any investments. Like, anyone promising you need to do this fantastical thing is probably, it's not true. Just don't do it.
Music to my ears. Yeah, the Facebook ads annoy me. It's like the same formula of like 20 like single lines with emojis in between, and I'm like,
yeah. And I mean, I get it from, like, I run a mastermind within Small Business Boss, and I'll get a note from someone in the mastermind who knows better, and they're just like, oh, do I need this? I'm like, no, you don't need this. Stop it. Maggie says no, don't do it.
Okay, so what tips do you have? So working the network, I totally agree, and that's great advice. I think most people, you're right, we like hide or get insecure, or we're just like, oh, well, I have to talk to new people because I'm doing a new thing, right?
Yes.
Instead of talking to them. So what recommendations do you have for people when they're reaching out?
Number one, make it a win-win. So here's what you don't want to do, is not talk to someone for like 3 years and then roll all up in their inbox, say like, hey, can you send me some people? Take the time to nurture, like, reconnect with people, have conversations, make it personal. You know, if your network is locally based, go for coffee, go for lunch, like, invest the time in people so there is that reciprocal relationship. Because really, as humans, we're hardwired to want to refer people. We're hardwired to want to do something nice for people who do something nice for us. So taking someone for coffee, now they feel like they owe you a solid, and they're going to keep you top of mind. And I also think just to being really really okay with being giving with your experience. I think a lot of times as a professional, we'll default into like, no, you got to pay for that. In those beginning stages of business, I think it's really important that you are generous with your time. And it's not all about that hard boundary. I think that's a big mistake we can make early on. And I'm not saying give everything away for free. Don't start doing pro bono projects, but really think about like, hey, how can I create this as a two-way street, not just, hey, what's in it for me? And really think about how you can be of service.
Yeah, that's a great one. I kind of came across that even for myself, like over this past time and running a local networking. I started a local networking group, and it's just, yeah, the relationships and keeping in touch with them and giving, you know, to be able to then later see, you know, how it works for you and your business. Yeah. How about social media platforms? Like when you're doing that and reaching out, like, and not just social media, but email or like LinkedIn, or how would you say connecting with these people and your network?
So, you know what, I think this always comes down to how to, like, you know, each of these people, you have some sort of relationship. So knowing what's best for them. Do you have a text relationship? Do you have a Facebook DM relationship? You know, like I can think of someone I worked with years and years ago that we keep in touch, but we use LinkedIn. So just kind of thinking about like, where's the best connection point for them? Is it going to be LinkedIn? Is it going to be, do you have that text relationship? Is it an email? And really customizing it to the person and not getting so attached to what works for you. But again, looking at like, hey, I know Susie, she really likes texts or Voxer or whatever. So that's how I'm going to communicate with her. Because you want to make it easy for people to interact with you.
Yeah. And that's not the same as like having your social media presence and focusing on one platform to like show all your stuff or do all your posts or anything, but it's really adapting to them for communication.
Exactly. And I think for a lot of us, if we're professional, like you have a strong professional network, LinkedIn is a great place Like if you're already connected there, use that as a starting point. It's a lot easier to get that than being lost in someone's inbox a lot of times.
Yeah. I get so many requests for people on LinkedIn that I don't know.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm fine with that.
Yeah. And you connect with them.
Yeah.
I always wondered, I'm like, should I leave them hanging in limbo land or should I connect with them and then, I don't know.
Yeah. You know what? I always figure if someone's going to connect with me on LinkedIn, it's fine. It's not like I have pictures of my kid on there. I have them on Facebook. I'd much rather connect with everybody over on LinkedIn than on Facebook. So I'm like, that kind of those shenanigans from the girls' weekend that go up on Facebook, I maybe don't want those to be seen by professional contacts.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay. And then how about, so what are some things that you recommend to people do? We talked about things not to do. What are some things that you recommend to people when they say, if they come to you and they say, hey, like, I need more clients or I have a new financial goal for the month and I don't know how to go about it?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things. Number one is looking at how, if you have a track record of getting clients, what's traditionally worked for you. And I'll give you an example. I have one client who pretty much 100% of her business has been built on referrals. So whenever she needs to fire things up, I'm like, you need to go ask for more referrals from your existing network. And I think one of the things that people don't realize about referrals, we wait for referrals to come to us, but we also have this like kind of glossy veneer on social media where people think, oh, she's got it together, she's totally booked. I mean, I have totally done this to myself. People have been like, wait, you're taking clients? I'm like, yeah, of course I am. They're like, oh, I would have asked you like 6 months ago if I'd known. They're like, oh, I wasn't referring business. I'm like, oh. So you've got to let people know, like, hey, I do have an opening for a client. Yes, I totally would love to connect with that person. Like, be proactive about asking those people who referred in the past, be like, hey, just want to let you know, I've got one spot for a client. Do you know anyone? Again, in a really low pressure way. But then I've got another client that she gets most of her clients through cold outreach on LinkedIn. So when she needs to get more clients or she wants to reach a revenue goal, I'm like, girl, go over there and turn on that switch and get that going. You know, knowing what really works for you. And if nothing really works for you, maybe it's time to kind of pivot and try a different tactic. But I think the one thing you always want to keep in mind is that this idea of finding clients, it should be proactive. You shouldn't be like sitting back passively and being like, hey, I'm not getting any clients. Like, you need to be, I don't want to use the hustle, but like, if you want the new clients, you need to be showing up at least.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a very good point, because otherwise how will they even know?
Exactly. Like, if you're sitting at home in your PJs being like, I have no clients, well, go to a networking event, put on some hands and get out there, because, and I mean, this is, again, you know, hardwood wisdom from my own business. About 18 months ago, my business partner at the time, and we're like, we've had a kind of a dip. What's going on? I'm like, wait a second. We haven't been doing anything to get clients.
That's a very good point too, about sitting around and waiting versus what you can proactively go out and do and tell people.
And yeah, and I think just having the faith in yourself that, like, with the right energy, like the activity and the action and the energy, you're doing something, the new clients will follow.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that ties to, okay, let's talk a little bit about the other part of what you do with the messaging and the content and helping people with those types of strategies. So the funnels and all that stuff, they don't need those fancy things. What types of things do they need?
So I think, you know, when it all comes down to what kind of business you run. So if you're running a business that's based on clients that sells to, let's say, like we do in the agency, we sell typically to a VP of marketing or a marketing director. Well, let me tell you what I've learned about them. They're not going to go in an email funnel. They're just not. So why am I going to run one? Whereas if you're running a coaching business and you're really focused on kind of those one-to-one sales, it's not a corporate thing, maybe some sort of opt-in with a funnel and some blog posts or podcasts in the front end to be bringing people in would make sense. But I think here's the thing you have to remember is understanding that tactic, like content marketing as a tactic, is a one-to-many tactic. Whereas a lot of the stuff we just talked about before is a one-to-one tactic. So a one-to-many tactic always takes longer. So if you want clients, you know, in the next three to 6 months, content marketing, start it now so you can be using it way like years from now. Right. And it's interesting. I really see the benefit of this within Small Business Boss because we do our own content marketing, but we don't sell a lot of stuff. So we basically let it simmer all year long. And then once a year we're like, hey, the mastermind's here.
Yeah.
And like, whereas I think a lot of times we think, oh, it has to be very, very aggressive. I think showing up and being of service with your content marketing and playing that long game is ultimately what you have to be doing, and understanding what is it that your ideal client needs. And is that email? Do they need a PDF? Do they need a checklist? Is it a live they're going to watch? Understanding what social media platforms they hang out, because I see people just creating more content and more content and more content. And what it is it's busy work that's preventing them from doing the work of actually finding clients today.
And like then drowning in that busy work and spinning their wheels because they're doing too many things that like maybe no one's looking at or reading or whatever.
Exactly. And I think understanding, like, it's very different working in a client-based business versus a product-based business. A product-based business, oh, you need SEO. Like for brief transitions, you need SEO, you need a blog, you need it driving that front end of the business. Whereas for a service-based business, that a lot of times is busy work.
Yeah. And to get out there or get yourself known to people. That's a very good point. I know brief transit. I feel so different between brief transitions and anything else that I do because they're so, product business is totally
different ball wax. I've ran a product business in the past. I was like, oh, that's a lot of blogging.
It's a lot of things. But okay, but I think that's important for people to know too, and to pay attention to what they're doing and why they're doing it. Right. Yeah. So then a follow-up question for you on that, if they've been trying something for a while, and this is like the data metrics person behind me, how do you decide like if it's working or not, or if you should switch to something else, like if you're testing a funnel or, any of those kinds of things?
So I think you definitely have to understand what kind of those leading metrics or those KPIs are for those specific marketing activities. And I really see two things happen in there. And I'm sure Mary, you've experienced this, right? Like people are measuring things so tightly and they have this unrealistic idea of what those metrics should be, or they don't measure it at all.
Yes.
Like there's nothing in between.
Yes.
And the perfect example is I see this a lot in the podcasting community. People will start a podcast and they're like, I don't have enough downloads. And I'm like, wait a second. Okay, let's talk about what not enough downloads means. And then I start sharing my download numbers. Their mind is blown because they're like, wait, you've built that kind of business off the back of a podcast with that few downloads? Like, I'm not getting 10 downloads, but I'm not getting, 10,000 downloads per episode either. So understanding, what is the relationship between the piece of content I'm creating and what it does for my business, and how does that all fit together, and not getting obsessed necessarily with metrics that are other people's metrics. Because I think it's really easy to be like, oh, I need an email list of 10,000 people, or I need 20,000 followers on the Instagram. Well, why? If you can achieve the same result with a much tighter audience, that's not a bad thing. So, finding that happy medium between not measuring and measuring, and like understanding what's right for your business. And I think too, like understanding you need to be patient. I've been podcasting for 5 years, 5 years. Like it didn't just happen in the first month. So again, like what is the time to success with that specific thing? I mean, this is something I deal with corporate clients all the time. I'm like, this is going to be like a 6-month push. Like, this isn't happening fast.
Like that. And they're like, oh, everyone wants service, so give it to me tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, there's nothing. Or they get to the metric they think is the metric they wanted, and then they're like, oh, that didn't actually do the thing we thought it would. Yeah. Like, oh, yeah, I kind of told you that.
Yeah. It's true. People either ignore or they try too much, for sure. And like, they're both so bad in different ways. You don't want to ignore, but you don't want to like kill yourself over like all these numbers that don't mean anything.
Yeah. And perfect example, like to just put a really good container on this is with Small Business Boss, we've had an email list over 10,000 people. Our email list is down to 3,000 people because we purged it. And it's
I had a friend that purged her list once, and I said, oh my goodness, I'm working so hard to get a list and you're purging your list. She's like, yeah, they weren't opening the emails. Like
they're not the right people. Like, and we realized from that, like Facebook ads don't work really well for our business because our people tend to be like, I don't have time for this. So why would we do Facebook ads? Why would we create an environment where we're attracting the wrong people to our business? Because we've been way more successful, and we made way more money with a much smaller, tighter list of the right people than a big list of, 10,000 brag-worthy people, right? Like, so understanding what actually is relevant for the business.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's huge. Yeah, I think that's a great reminder because email list is one of those things that people always talk about, how you need like thousands and thousands and thousands and tens of thousands.
Yeah. And again, understanding like I'm selling a mastermind with 18 spots. 18 people out of 3,000 is not a huge amount. Whereas if I was selling a course and needed to sell 300 courses, I need a much different size of list. So again, making sure that that metric fits the actual strategy.
Yes. Oh, yes. I like that too. Yeah. So because that's a whole other thing of how many people for each thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And then, so what are your thoughts? We talked a little bit about the social media platforms and picking one and that type of thing. What are your thoughts about how often someone has to be visible and present and posting content?
I think it comes down to understanding the behavior on that platform. So a perfect example is for the agency, we use LinkedIn. I can post once a week on LinkedIn, maybe spend 30 minutes there a week, and that works great for LinkedIn. I can't do that on Instagram. On Instagram, we post 3-4 times a week. We're doing stories. It's because it moves a lot faster. So understanding kind of the velocity of the platform, how do you continue to stay relevant and stay in the feed for it? I mean, there's no hard and fast rules. And I think one of the best things is be like, okay, I'm going to take the best practice, which is I'm going to start with posting 3 times a week, and we're going to see how that works for our business. We're going to see, for me, like, how does that, does that increase or does it decrease? I mean, we've done all kinds of little experiments within our clients' business and within our own business. And like, what works in our business doesn't necessarily work for our clients. So you've got to start somewhere. And I think the thing you should always be looking at with social media is, how do I get consistent enough that I'm not doing this like, oh, I'm here, and I disappear for 3 months and I come back. Because you know what? That doesn't build trust. I can think of one person, I love her, she's a good friend, but she's on social and then she ghosts. And then she comes back because she needs clients. And then she goes, and I watched this cycle for like 5 years. I'm like, oh, here we go again. It becomes it's jarring. It does not create trust with your audience. So I think you're better even to do a little less and be more consistent than be like, I'm totally in and then I'm off. I'm totally in and then I'm off. So finding that happy medium for you, and just know that for example, Instagram, I think stresses a lot of people out because it does move really quickly. You've got to create a lot of content. It's all visual. Instagram is changing really, really quickly. And the expectation of a perfectly curated feed is going away. No one wants to see that.
Finally.
Much more raw, much more real. So it doesn't, you don't have to pull open that grid and be like, okay, it's perfect. I've got my picture and then a candid, like, we don't have to do that type of planning anymore. It doesn't have to be all white. We don't have to have an Instagram photo shoot necessarily. Like, yes, it needs to be appealing, but I think from what I've seen and what I've been reading even just last week, like, it's shifting away from that kind of perfect pink, white, influencer look.
Yeah. I mean, for me, so I do have like a pattern in my posts.
Yeah.
My VA always like laughs at me. She's like, can we break the pattern now? And I'm like, the pattern is what helps me know that I have to post.
Yeah.
That was the way that I was able to start. I was like, okay, we'll break the pattern. But for right now, like, that's how I know I get 3 posts out a week. That's how I know that I'm doing something and not overwhelming myself.
Yeah. And you've got, I think, all of this, whether it's finding clients or social media or content marketing or, reaching out to people, you need some sort of system or process so that you are able to get that kind of rhythm going. Because I think it's really hard to start. Like, I gotta do my social. Well, what am I going to do? Well, if you can shortcut that a little bit by creating some sort of like rhythm to it, it will make it a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good point too. That's why it was like for my sanity, it was like, this is what I have to do right now. But I have not done a photo shoot for my Instagram account. Although for brief transitions, I'm going to do new product photos. So, but again,
makes complete sense. Hello, you need to show the product.
Yeah, totally different. Yes, I agree. Excellent. Okay, so Maggie, do you have any other tips? I know we covered a lot of different things, but any other tips around either on the client side or on the content marketing and social media side?
I think if you're working with clients, just remember like it's kind of this continuum of like finding clients and then booking those clients and then serving those clients. And at different parts or different stages during the year or different stages in your business, you're going to be focusing on different ones. Like once you find you've kind of find a book clients, maybe you're going to focus more on those internal processes and systems. But then you're going to have to come back to finding clients. So kind of jumping between those three and understanding like, do I need to be focusing on that marketing to find clients? Do I need to be focusing on sales to book those clients? Or do I need to be focusing on the serving of those clients to really kind of wow them and keep them happy? So understanding it is going to change, but if you are working in a client business, you maybe don't need things out of those specific things, and really being discerning about like, hey, do I really need to be doing it? Does it help me find clients? Does it help me book clients? Does it help me serve my clients? No. Okay, I don't need to do this. I'm good.
Yeah, that's a really good point and a really good reminder. I like that you broke it out into those three, because that's even how you set up your process or your system around it. And like, okay, what am I doing here? Then what do I do here? Then what do I do here? And then
and I see like people be like, they'll say to me in our community, they're like, oh, I need to be focusing on my onboarding system. I'm like, how many clients do you have right now? They're like, 2. I'm like, who are you onboarding? Figure that out in real. And I think in any business, get okay with figuring things out in real time. Yes. And experimenting as go, because it's really easy to do something like an onboarding system or your social media with like, it's going to be this perfectly planned thing. But when you actually implement it in real time, you're going to learn so much, and just kind of look at it as a series of experiments. Like I always say to my team, I'm like, all right, we're going to do this for 30 days. I'm going to see what happens. And getting okay with like, okay, what happened? Here's the data. Here's what we're going to learn. Do we proceed? Do we change it? It's all one big kind of continuing experiment. Instead of it's never going to be perfect. So just get in there and do it. Yes.
I love that. And like, hence even the Transitions Collective, because we're always in transition for something. So you just
always,
right?
Well, it makes me laugh because my clients or people I know will be like, oh, I totally thought you had it all together. I'm like, I've been doing this a long time. Yeah, I'm a hot mess. Don't worry.
We're all listening to my podcast
at times, and that's okay.
Honest and real on your podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I've been getting realer and realer. People like, I had no idea what was going on. I'm like, I wasn't doing good enough job sharing the hot mess.
It's true though, because like you want to celebrate things, so then you're like putting out the positive things, and you don't want to like. I mean, for me, like the difficult stuff, like I know it's important to talk about, but you also don't want to have to think about it more than you already have to think about it. So you're like, why do I also talk about that? So I can see why people don't do it, but we need to do more of it for sure, because it's
I think too, it's a personality thing too. Like if you were to go look at like my Fascinate archetype and my Myers-Briggs, and we're like, I'm not the most forthcoming on that stuff. I tend to keep stuff like shoved down in its little compartment. So for me to share it publicly, I'm like, no. Yeah. I don't talk to my best friend about that. I don't want to talk about this. Right. Don't worry if there's any life coaches in the group. I've got it handled. I'm not going to explode because it's shoved down there. It's just like, it's in this little section right now.
It's like in a little pocket, in a little container. We're just going to leave it there.
Exactly. It's doing well down there.
I love it. Okay. So I ask this to all of my interviewees. Yes. What is something from corporate America that has helped you now as an entrepreneur?
Oh, 100% learning how to write proposals. Because I write a ton of proposals in my business, and that goes right back to my corporate days. And that was trial by fire, but I feel like I have such a good system because of that. And those sales skills to go with it. Like, I owe a lot to my ex-bosses.
And that's something, I mean, most entrepreneurs struggle with that, with all of that.
Yeah, it's not easy, but I think also too, just knowing that sales is really just about like figuring out what people need and helping them. And I'm the worst salesperson on earth, because I'm like, oh, you don't need that. Like, I can't be bothered. I'm like, but what you could use is this. Like, I tell people all the time, oh, you don't need us.
But I mean, you're being authentic, and you're showing like what's real, and then the people that need you and are attracted to that, like that's who you get then.
Exactly. And you know what? It just makes everyone's life easier. There's no point in starting a relationship business-wise that's not a good fit.
Right. That's another hard thing I think for people to accept and get beyond, like instead of trying to like bring on everybody.
You can't serve everyone. And I think one of the things, especially if you work with corporate clients or business owners, like you've got to know that you can't care about their business more than they do. Like you really and truly can't. So if they think you're going to be the solution to your business and they're putting all the eggs in that basket, it's way too much pressure for you. Like it's just, I see it all the time, whether it's coaches or consultants or whatever. It's just not a good place to be.
That is such a good point. Such a good point, because you can't like do it for them. And I've worried about that from time to time too. I'm like, I can't do this for someone else. Like I can help them and give them some tools, but you're right. It's like it's a ton of pressure of like, and it's just.
Yeah. Like I have to have a conversation with a client today to tell them like, basically like, if you're going to do a podcast, you have to do the podcast. Like I can help you, but I can't like, I'm not going to all of a sudden be your on-air talent.
Yeah, you're not going to have a podcast with a voiceover person.
Like, yeah, like I'm not a voiceover person. This voice is not meant for that.
But you're right. Like it's about the ownership and not feeling like you have to own it for them. That's huge. That really resonated with me. So thank you, Maggie.
You're welcome.
Okay. And can you please tell our audience where they can find more about you?
You can find more about me over on the Small Business Boss podcast, on the Small Business Boss website at smallbusinessboss.co, and over on Instagram at smallbusinessboss.
Excellent. Oh, and I did want to ask you too, for your mastermind, what time of year does that open, and what is it? Who is it for?
So it is for service-based business owners. Most people tend to be either in one of two states. They're in a state of transition where they want to kind of up their game, or they're at the point where they're like, oh, I need to figure out how to extricate myself from the business. So they're starting to grow into something where they're like, hey, I need a team, and they just need a lot of support. And as one of my mastermind members says, once you check in, you might ever check out. She's like, every year, she's like, here's my credit card. She tried to give it to me in June last year. I was like, you need to calm down. But we normally enroll that in late November. And the best way to be in the know about that is just make sure you're like on the email list and you're following on the podcast. And because when it comes, I'm like, jazz hands and glitter, all like, the mastermind is here.
Yeah, that's great. But I think it's so important for people to get support in those ways. Like, I truly believe like you can't move, let's put it this way, you can't move forward either as quickly or as well, like on your own as you can with other people's support.
Exactly. And I mean, the way I really approach it is it's a combination of group support and really mentoring. Like my job is to come in and like amplify and like say, hey, here's what I would do in this situation, versus trying to coach them when I don't have that experience. And I try to make sure that the people in the mastermind, like they are the type of businesses that I have experience consulting on.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense too. And they don't have to be content marketing businesses.
Nope. No, I have everything from like a locally based therapist to a copywriter to designers to coaches. Like it's a little bit of everything. And it's always, you know what, I think the thing that bonds everyone together is kind of their willingness to do the work and their kind of sensibility of like, they don't have time for a lot of fluff. Which is great, which especially if they're trying to scale, they certainly don't have time for that. They don't.
Yeah. Maggie, this has been excellent. Thank you so much for all of this amazing information. I'm sure everyone is furiously writing notes or thinking about what they're going to do next because you gave so many great tips. So awesome. Thank you so much, Mary. Thanks. Bye. Bye. Hi, everyone. I hope you really enjoyed that episode with Maggie. I thought she had so much great information to share around how to get clients, how to keep things simple while you're doing it. And also, I love the piece that she covered around content marketing and social media and figuring out what works for you, what doesn't, and making sure you're not drowning in the busy work. and that you're actually doing the things that make the most out of your time. If you'd like to hear more about Maggie, you can visit her Small Business Boss and also Scoop Studios. I'll put the links for each in the show notes. And I'd love to know what resonated with you, what you enjoyed about this episode. So please feel free to email me, mary@thetransitionscollective.com, or find me on social media. If you are not signed up for the community yet, you can go to thetransitionscollective.com/community, and we'll have more news about that coming soon. But get on the list. You'll get a download about goals and strategies, planning, super important for your business. And we'll connect and we'll be in touch. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you and seeing how I can help you in your journey. Thanks, and have a great day. Bye.